Hello, besties and bosses. Let me pull this up in the group because I can never see the comments otherwise. How are y'all doing? I am wearing my headphones today because you've been hanging out with me for any amount of time. You know that I think it's been the past 4 years where I live in Brooklyn. They keep digging up our street. And I don't understand. I think I've said this before on here. It feels like the definition of an insanity because they dig up our street to, I guess, replace the water pipes or something. And then they do it all over again. I don't understand. But that means we have a lot of construction noise in the background. So I think this will hopefully drown some of that out for you. Okay, see this in the group so we can dive into today's conversation. I'm trying to think, do I have any important information for you? I missed y'all last week because we had our masterclass and I did it on Zoom instead of in the group, which is I think the first time I've ever done that. And I loved that setup so much. I think I will do that moving forward. It just felt a little bit more intimate. I felt like I got to see some of your faces. I got to connect and answer questions a little bit more easily. So we'll probably do that moving forward. If you were wondering why I wasn't here last week, that is why. And the masterclass, if you signed up, I believe it gets pulled down today, but I've asked my team to keep it up for an extra day or two because we actually noticed quite a lot of you signed up, I think from my email that we sent the day of, either from the Facebook group or from my email. So I just want to make sure y'all have enough time for that for the consistent client system. It's a really good one. So if you're worried about that, there is still time to catch that. Okay, let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. So we are talking about the simple concept that will make you more money than anything else in business. And I said, hint, this is something you already know. So I'm going to explain what this is, but I might tease it out a little bit. Here's this thing. This is one of those concepts. You're going to hear this and you're going to want to eye roll me so hard because you have heard this 1,000 fucking times. You know this, you know how to do this. This is not brand new information. However, I just saw my coach. I got to meet my coach in person. My coach I've worked with for 6 years. I actually just yesterday renewed with her again. So that'll be 6.5 years or 7 years. I don't even know at this point. I'm kind of losing track. She thought it might have been even longer than that because of some things. Oh, my chair is rolling. But I got to meet her in person here in the city and have dinner with her and a good mastermind friend of mine that I actually knew from an engagement pod on Instagram. We met probably 8 years ago. Anyway, we were having dinner. We were just talking about this through the lens of what some of the challenges in our industry, for a lack of a better way to say this, how this gets really severed and how a lot of people do harm to their business without realizing, but also how there's a lot of teaching that I think does harm to this concept that it's almost wild to all of us because there's certain elements of this concept that I'll explain that I think we all do that just make common sense and have supported all of our businesses. I have a multi-six-figure business. Both of them, I think, have seven-figure businesses or high multi-six, seven figures, depending on the year. And this is something all of us really do and have leaned into. And so I want to share what those specifics are because, again, it's going to sound like one of those basic bitch things you already know. And I think it's something a lot of people think they're doing, but I also think there's a lot of teachings that sever this, break this apart, that cause that cause this concept to not work and really harm people's results and their long-term results as well. And so as we're going through this, obviously, if you have questions, let me know if you're live. I always like to know who's here, but I will stop teasing this out. The only reason I'm teasing down is, again, you're going to hear this. Please don't bounce because I want to break down why, in particular, how I think about this. And then I want to give you some specific examples of how leaning into this concept I think it's the number one reason I have the results I do in my business. I've made 1.5 million from one-on-one alone in the past 5.5 years. I make 350, 360-ish per year with room to scale from one-on-one. I have clients that I've supported to go from 0 to 1 million, from 0 to 500K, from 0 to 250K, right? All these different big results. And of course, we look at their offer, we look at their strategy, we look at their messaging. Of course, these pieces are all important for them, but this is the number one thing, kind of like the thing under the thing that we're paying attention to. And so I want to explain what that is, and then I'm going to also show you how it really shows up gives you all the answers you need to know in your content, how to handle a sales conversation, how to follow up. So hang with me, even though it's simple, so that you can understand the nuance of this, because that's really the part I want you to hear. Hey, Tinley, I love you. Hi, nice to see you here. So the thing that is not rocket science that I've now been teasing out for five minutes is it's understanding people. It is understanding people and it's building relationships with people in a way that is really understanding people, but that is also taking into account how you would want to feel and how you would want to be treated, right? And putting the relationship and the other person in front of you first, even if they're not going to make you money, even if you don't think there's a way to make money from that. And I'll explain the nuance there. So at the end of the day, I think we forget that your business success, all of it, at the end of the day, it really and truly comes down to the quality, the depth, the strength of your relationships. And again, you've heard this, you know this, you see this outside of business. It is why there's nepotism, right? It is why in Hollywood, if you have great relationships, even if you kind of suck as an actor, right, you can get into more doors and onto more films and make a lot of money. Relationships really and truly are the end all be all. And I think what happens is this sounds almost too basic, or this sounds like something like we all know how to do, and so this feels like eye roll, and so we want to tune out, but we don't think about relationships are really complicated, and building the types of relationships that actually support long-term success, I think, are where things get really twisted. And again, I think there's just a lot of poor teachings in our online space that probably come from really good places, but that I think can harm relationships, really. But what I think about in particular when it comes to relationships in business is like, yes, we hear about the know, like, and trust, right? That's so important. But I also really think about it is building that that level of connection with someone where you actually understand them, right? Our job as a business owner, what actually makes for a good offer, what actually makes for good messaging, what actually makes for good marketing is knowing your people almost better than they know themselves, right? So it's not just a relationship where it's like, how do I build a brand and a vibe where people love me? It's like no, my job, this is a two-way street. My job is to know my clients, is to know my audience as really, really well as it relates to my work, and to, I mean, I'm sure some of my clients would tell you it's kind of annoying that sometimes I almost know them better than they know themselves, right? But that's my job, and that's my job in everything I'm doing in marketing. And the more I can understand not just people as a whole, but my people, the better results I'm going to get as a business owner, but also the better results they're going to get through my offers and through my programs. And then the other piece there, and I'll explain all of this a lot more, but it's also thinking about relationships not just based on what you can get. Adam Grant talks about this in Give and Take. I'm sure I have quoted this so many times. I'm going to repeat it again because you might not have heard me share this before if you haven't read the book. I think our general understanding in business, I think what most of us have generally been taught is that nice people finish last, right? I mean, I feel like, isn't that like the messaging out there? And the truth is, nice people finish both last and first. Yes, if you are super nice and you're a people pleaser and you're a pushover and you don't have boundaries, it is going to be really tough to create the kind of relationships in business that support you to make money, hands down. But in my opinion, that's actually not being a nice person, right? That's being a people pleaser, which is usually, look, I'm a recovering people pleaser, but that usually isn't even about so much about being nice as it is about self-protection, right? It's really more about me than it is about the other person when I'm doing that. It's a whole nother conversation. It's a trauma response, right? It's all of these other things that aren't so much about being nice. But when we look at businesses and we look at people who are most successful and who make the most money, you find people who are takers, right? I'm sure we've maybe seen this in the political landscape, right? People who are takers, right? People who are all about themselves, people who are just like, that is all I care about. They do actually also get ahead, right? There is an element of that, but here's the thing. People who know how to give and take, people who are nice, so to say, and who know how to create that give and take type of relationship, they come out ahead, even ahead of people who are takers. And I think that's just so important for us to land the plane on, because that is the kind of relationship that will get you literally further ahead than the person who is taking. And I know if you're in this group, you're heart-centered, you care about your work, you care about your clients, right? You don't want to be a taker. But a lot of times we can have the pendulum swing, right? Where we don't want to be a taker, we don't want to be gross. So we do one of a couple things, right? We either create the types of relationships where we're just giving, there isn't that give and take, or we are giving so much where it's really coming from like a lack of boundaries. It's coming from a people-pleasing place. It's really more about us and them, which tends to not feel so safe on the other side. That isn't really beneficial for business either. So we really want to look for that give and take. And the way I think about this is, again, what I said earlier, is I really think about how am I cultivating relationships that aren't just about what I can get, right? I have someone I'm talking with in email right now. They had some challenges with their email list, and I don't know if this person's ever going to hire. It'd be lovely to work with them, but like, there's a good chance this person will probably never hire me. And I'm kind of going above and beyond to support in a way that, like, I mean, it's taking up time of mine and I don't have a lot of time, right? I'm responding to some things there. But in my opinion, this is someone I care about as a human. This is a relationship I want to cultivate. Like, I'm not thinking about what can I get out of this relationship. I'm thinking about, obviously I need to have boundaries and all of that, but like, how can I serve this person in my audience? And I don't know if that's the best example in the world, but I think it's just a present one for me. And I think that's just something, again, we just don't think about enough. I will share with you, relationships have literally built my business. I would, so it's easy to say like, well, part of what's built your business, Kim, is your strategy and your offer and you're a good coach. And I am, all of that is true. And that you have really great client results and you have really great results. And that is all true, right? And I would never pretend that that hasn't helped me take my business to where it is today. However, I had to do something to get to the place where I got client results, right? Before I had a client who scaled to $1 million, I didn't have a client who scaled to $1 million. Before I made my first six figures or my first multi six figures, right? I hadn't, right? I had to be able to do things before that to get those results in the first place. And that was relationships. My first client I took from 10K months to 76K cash months, 110K cash months, $1 million year. That person hired me because we had a relationship outside. Like, I had built a strong relationship with them. I had built a strong relationship that they considered me as a coach. Even though they were one of my first clients, I was probably making $800 per month at that time, right? Like, they were making far, 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 far more money than me. I wasn't necessarily like the right business coach or the flashiest, shiniest business coach to hire, right? All of the things we hear in, which is all true. Like, I do think the more results you have and the more we can speak to that, of course, that makes things easier in business. But I want us to hear here, like, this is someone who they were already making six figures per year and I helped them scale to $1 million, which is like great. And now I get to talk about that. But I only get to talk about that because I built that relationship first and enough of a relationship with that person that they wanted to hire me even though I didn't have anything flashy or shiny to offer. I didn't have an audience, right? Like, I had none of the things I do now. That is what's built my business. The reason I have clients who stick with me for 4 or 5 years, yes, I'm a great coach, but part of it is because I prioritize our relationship. I prioritize them and what they need and how we can give and take over what I can get as a coach. So this is one of the things I was talking about with my coach and with my friend. I mean, things like, and I'm not talking about not having boundaries. I'm not talking about burning out, but I'm always willing to do something for a client that is going to maybe cost me money, right? Like, if a client has an emergency and needs to change a session, or if I'm going to give them some extra time on a call, or if I'm going to over deliver in terms of some review or some response in Basecamp. I mean, it's my pleasure and it's my joy, right? It feels like a give and take. I feel like I get so much back from my clients outside of money, but from the monetary results as well. And I have a revenue share model, so we could argue that, I do get monetary results from that as well. But I'm doing that because I care about the relationship more than I care about anything else. But that's also why clients stick around, right? I mean, yes, they're getting results, and of course, like, there's multiple facets here, but I would argue that's part of the reason they're getting results. It still comes back to that relationship. I want to see what Tinley has to say, and I'm going to give some more examples here, and then I will share some like really specific thoughts on how you can use this in your marketing, your sales, and just even how I think about this. Tinley says, yes to finding healthy ways to give out of love and grounded energy. I gifted my group of ladies 2 bonus months in the container because it felt good to serve them for longer. I give myself some space, and all of them are either continuing on for so much longer or are wanting to upgrade to VIP in some capacity. Nurturing these relationships and giving because it feels good. Amen. It's exactly this, Tinley. This is a perfect example. So you weren't doing that because you felt like, I'm not good enough, and so I need to give all of this, and I'm just gonna like screw my boundaries, and I'm people pleasing, right? That would not actually be a give and take. That would be really, it seems like a give and being an overgiver, but that would be coming from actually a very selfish place from all of us. Not to call anyone out, I'm raising my hand as a recovering people pleaser and as someone who has had to work a lot. I have excellent boundaries now, but that is, because I've done a lot of work around them. I think it seems like we're giving a lot, but again, I think that really is more about us than them. But I think what Tinley is saying here is such a great example. What she did there, it felt good, but it wasn't like that was your strategy and way where you're like, if I do this, then I expect all of these women to stay in my program. And if I do this, I expect them, like, it wasn't this like tit for tat mentality. And this is again what Adam Grant talks about in Give and Take. It's an excellent book. I'm a big fan of Adam Grant's work. For any of you who want to check that book out, but it's that tit for tat mentality that's really it's not going to harm you in business, right? You will get to a certain degree, but we all can tell, right? We are all smart humans. We can tell when someone's doing something just for that tit for tat, like they just want something in return, versus what Tinley said here is this was really coming from a place of this just feels really good to give and to build this relationship. And then look what she got in return as a result. Everybody stayed in her program. It's such a brilliant example. It's exactly what we were talking about over this dinner, Tinley. I absolutely love that. I'll give a personal example here, and then I'll share a couple of other examples of how this shows up in my business. But after the election, I showed up. I showed up for all of you. I did a live stream. I had supported my clients quite a lot, and I had I put out an email, put out some content, and I got I got some commentary and some things that were not great. And so I had texted my therapist, which I rarely do. My therapist allows that. And I think I've probably done that maybe one other time in the last year. Like I generally don't need that kind of support. And I just texted her because I needed to process through something so that I could support all of my people. And I have one session now with my therapist. I'm sort of like in a maintenance mode. Is that a thing? And she texted me back, and this is a therapist I pay out of pocket. She's not inexpensive at all. She charges quite a bit. I would say on the premium side per hour, rightfully so for her work. And she texted me. She's like, "Are you free right now if I call you?" And she literally called me for 10 minutes. She didn't bill me for it, because this was something that was kind of linked to my trauma. Like this was just linked to a lot of my trauma and a lot of my things, and like I needed to talk through it. It was a Friday night. It was like 6 p.m., right? Like it's her dinner time, and she picked up the phone to call me for 10 minutes and didn't bill me for it. Now, the reason I'm giving that as an example is I think there's a lot of teachings that would say you should never do that, right? You should always bill for that. Protect your boundaries, honor your work, know your worth. And all of that is true, right? You should know your worth. You should protect your boundaries. You should hold boundaries, right? You should charge accordingly for your work. And things are nuanced, right? And when we look at I have built a relationship with my therapist over the last couple of years, right? That is a nuanced relationship. I genuinely believe, because like the first thing I texted her was like, please don't call me if that's a boundary cross. Like I'm good. And I really believe, because she does work around her boundaries, right? That this was coming from a place of, this wasn't a boundary cross. This wasn't out of scope. And she just genuinely, like, she was able to do it. She had some free time. Like, it was genuinely felt important and good to her to show for those 10 minutes and over deliver in that way. And I will tell you that what that did to our relationship, I mean, they've done research on this, right? Like the what you get out of therapy, what you get out of coaching has more to do with your relationship with your therapist or coach than it does with their skill set or the methodology they're using. What that did for our relationship, I will probably never ever need that again. But I mean, just like, she has a client for life, but also I just feel so held, so supported. Like, right, I am just gonna like refer everyone, and my sister and brother to her. Like, I will refer everyone to her, but I will also, for as long as I ever want therapy, like that, and it's also going to support my results. But again, this is just not what we are taught in the online space at all. I think we are taught, like, how do you scale out of the human relationship and giving a fuck as quickly as possible, and finding ways to give a fuck that still feel good, right? That don't cross your boundaries, right? I would never do that or expect someone to do that if that was a boundary cross. But when that feels good, that will change your business all day, every day, in ways that feel good, but in monetary ways that you cannot imagine. Tinley says, recovering people pleasers unite. Girl, I love you, and I am definitely a recovering people pleaser. But recovering is the key word here. We are in recovery, and that is the magic here. Tinley says, I love everything about that. So wonderful and a powerful choice by your therapist. Isn't that just, and I think about, thank you for saying that, Tinley, but I think about, my own coach. I've just shared with it. I just renewed with her for, so it's gonna be 6.5 years now, 7 years, however many years it is. I got the email for the renewal. When I say I should pull up my response. It took me less than 20 seconds to reply, and my response, because it was her assistant that reached out for the renewal, my response was literally, you never have to ask me, and you can just assume I will always renew, but like, I know you have to ask, and I appreciate that. One of the reasons for that is the relationship we've built. And part of that is because of that relationship. I would never want to have to build that relationship with someone else. I mean, first of all, I value my time and money. The thought of doing that over with another coach at this stage in my business, like that, like, no, thank you. But I also really value the relationship I have. And I know, because we have such a strong relationship, that's part of what allows me to get the most out of coaching. She knows me, she knows my business, she knows my history. right? She knows she's willing to over deliver in ways. She came to meet me for dinner and take me out for dinner. Like, that's not on the clock, right? Like, all of these things that deepen our relationship. When she was in the city recently, all of these ways that deepen the relationship that really aren't about what she can get, right? She doesn't have to do any of that. But because of that, look at what that actually gives her in her business. That gets her a client who I pay her revenue share, right? So that means I'm just gonna, the longer I work with her, the more money I'm gonna make, right? The more I'm gonna pay her. But also she has a client who will renew pretty much for life. And it's so easy for her because it takes me 10 seconds, 20 seconds to make that decision, right? Which is in terms of like team time and follow-up time and marketing time. It costs so much more money in your business to create a new client than it does to keep an existing happy client. And so, I mean, this could go on and on here, but that's also because the way she has focused on our relationship, not only what I'm paying her and the number of sessions I'm getting and, like, being really by the book. She's focused on that relationship and what she can give more than she can get, which is one of the reasons I also love her as a coach, because that's my philosophy and how I want to treat clients as well. But if I even think about things like, why have I been able to work with some of the clients I'm able to work with? Why do my clients stick around? Why have I been able to do collaborations with certain people that have ended up making me money? If I think about even why do I have a 92 to 93% sales call closing rate, right? That doesn't actually that's just not a statistical norm. It all comes back to relationship building. I mean, why I booked high ticket clients last month, and I wasn't launching, and I showed up less than ever last month because I was on vacation. Why was that possible? Because of the relationships I've built, right? And because I'm thinking about and know my audience in a way where it's like I know my people and I think about what do they need, like how can I give instead of just what can I get, right? Like, I want to have that give and take, but I want to also do it from a place of just not that tit for tat. And I genuinely think that is why all of those things have been possible for me. I just want to see here. Tinley says, that's what I say every time you ask. I'm like, send the day contact and invoice already. It is what you say, and I love you for it. And not that, in case any of my clients are watching this now or on the replay, I do want to say, I might do a live stream on this next week. I think everybody has such different decision-making processes. I also have wonderful long-term clients who always need to revisit the decision and think it over and talk it out, right? We all have different decision-making processes, so I don't want to make anyone wrong who doesn't make decisions that way. I just wanted to use that as an example because it happens to be true for me. And it's true for Tinley as well in terms of the relationship build, but just so no one's making that wrong. If you have a potential client who has a different decision-making process, or if you're someone who has a different decision-making process, right? But just coming back to what we're talking about here, the more I focus on relationships with my clients, right, the more I understand, right, the relationship piece that we were talking about at the beginning of this live stream is also understanding people and understanding your people and understanding what makes people tick and how they think and how they make decisions. The more I know that, the more I can also not make that wrong. I know one of my clients, for example, every time we have a renewal, she has a very specific decision-making process because we've built a relationship and because I understand her as a person and I've taken the time to do that. And I'm not just, how do I do this in a way that gets me a client or a sale or a renewal, right? I can see that as not a problem and hold her through what she in particular needs for that decision-making process versus, someone else who's going to have a very different decision-making process. And so I think that's actually a really good example there as well. But let's talk about how this applies to things, because I think what I put in the email for this is how this basically gives you every answer you ever need to know for your content, for your marketing, for your sales conversations. And I just want to break that down a little bit because I feel like you all know relationships are important. I've kind of hit you over the head with that. But I want us to keep coming back to, it's the kind of relationships where it's the give and take, not just what's in it for me, not just that tit for tat. And then specifically for us as business owners, it's also the type of relationship where we're really understanding our people and our audience. The more you understand your clients, the more you understand your audience, right, the better the relationship is going to be. And not that it's a one-sided relationship. Of course, relationships are back and forth, but the truth is with our audience, in some ways it's a little bit more one-sided than, say, my marriage or my best friend. Tinley, I think I'm allowed to say this. Tinley and I are also friends now because we have a great client-coach relationship, but I also consider Tinley a friend, right? So there's that example. But in general, when I'm thinking about my clients, the relationship is more one-sided in that they are paying me to deliver a service. It should be more about them and their needs and me understanding them, right? They don't need to understand me and my feelings and what's going on for me as well, right? That's actually not what the relationship is about. So I feel like that's important to say here, because I think that's also where this concept can get a little confused. At the end of the day, like, it really isn't about me. It is about my people, my audience. But again, the more we can understand people, think about content and messaging, for example. I feel like when we think about messaging, when we think about content, when we think about, our marketing strategy, most of my clients, and most of us, I'll raise my hand, I'm sure this comes up for me as well. I feel like when we're struggling, we are sort of like, can someone just tell me the right thing to say? Like, should I say 10K a month? Should I say, like, wait, like, what's the magic result? Like, what's the magic sentence? What's the magic thing I can put in my bio to blow up my results? And look, again, of course, speaking to your results is important. Again, it's helpful that I can speak to, I have helped multiple clients scale to multi-six and seven figures, right? All of those things are really helpful. But if I just said that alone, quite honestly, I don't think I would have the business I do if I only spoke to those surface level results. Again, they're important. Please no one hear this. I think speaking to those things are quite important. But I really think, I definitely don't think I'd have the client relationships I do and be able to do the work and enjoy my work at the level I do. And really the difference maker I see, I just posted something kind of about this today on Instagram today. The difference maker I see with content, with messaging, is not what's the like perfect one-liner sentence. It's how well do I know my people? So I know what they need to hear. So I know what they need to speak to. So I know the nuance, right, of what to share and what to talk about. So I can make people feel so seen, heard, and understood through my content in a way where they're sort of like, did this bitch just read my journal? Like, has she been spying on me? And like, that is, when you can do that, that is when your messaging soars. That is when your content soars. That's also when you build relationships, right, that are all about the person in front of you, not about yourself, right? They're all about and in service of the type of relationship that's going to facilitate that type of know, like, and trust, that's going to facilitate bringing in more clients, making more sales. I think that makes sense, but if you have a question around that, getting on a call, Tinley says, we'll catch the rest of the play later. Love you so much. I love you so much, Tinley. And Marie says, one of the ways to keep existing clients is to do a great job, set high standards, and keep things high. If things will be late, let them know beforehand. Great point that you can be friends, but they are still the client. Absolutely, and I don't know if you just hopped on, Marie, but like kind of what we were saying earlier, and I think this is what I think about is, yes, keeping a high standard, doing a great job, and really making the client the priority and the focus, and in that way of, again, having boundaries. And I think sometimes with over delivery, it's such a slippery topic, and I want to be mindful of how I speak about it, because it veers into people pleasing or thinking what you're doing isn't good enough or overworking really quickly, and that is not what I'm talking about at all. Again, everybody gets to have boundaries, but when you do a good job, when you care about, just so everything that Ray's saying here, when you care about your clients, but when you're also just willing to be that person who cares about the relationship and your clients and what they get out of their investment so much that you are willing to do that little bit extra or show up in that extra way from a place of joy, right? From a place of like, because I care so much about this relationship, that's the easiest way to have a successful business. That's the easiest way to keep clients. 1,000, like, you just hit the nail on the head there. So we just talked about content and messaging. Let's talk about sales conversations, because I think, I'm often hesitant to share my sales call conversion rate, because I think that can make it sound like I have a magic secret for sales, or that like I really push people hard on sales conversations. Like, I sometimes worry that it's going to scare people off of having a consultation with me. Like, you're not allowed to say no, and that is, frankly, I would say it's actually the opposite of this in many ways. I think I'm like the anti-salesperson on a sales conversation, because I care so much about the person in front of me and understanding them and listening to them and finding out if we're really a fit. And I have told people not to hire me before, or been really, really clear and level set in terms of expectations. But the reason I say that is because, again, when people hear my sales call conversion rate, a lot of times people wonder, like, what am I doing? Or when people hear how much money I make from one-on-one, I had one of my past clients be like, but I just don't understand, like, what are you doing? And what I will say is exactly what I really see as the secret for sales conversations is when you put relationship first, when you put the person in front of you first, when you think about how can I give and take, not how can I have a tit for tat, when you can see the person in front of you as a human and care more about them and what's right for them than about making money, your sales conversations will change. The money in your business will change. The way you feel in your business will change. And I think we all want this. I really think everybody wants this, but I think it's hard for lots of reasons. I think there's a lot of teachings out there, right, which say like, yes, but like you do that in the container. Like first you got to like try to get the credit card on the call, like push them on the call. Like you've got to make them see why they need you. Like you need to be in your power. I don't know. There's just a lot of trash messaging out there, in my opinion. I think there's also like, look, I think the reality is if you're in scarcity, if you're in fear, if you're like, I really need to make some money, I think sometimes it can feel like, great, this is the thing I will focus on and do after I have some clients, after I have some money. I can't afford to like not really push for the sale right now. I can't afford to like not be tit for tat. I can't afford to like really focus on this person in front of me. And what I really want you to hear, this is coming from someone who has been on both sides of the fence in business, right? Like I've had my struggle bus years. I have now made, I think we're coming, I start to lose track. So don't like come after me if I'm like wrong by a month, if I like have it in a post wrong. But I think this month we'll close out our 67th consecutive 10K to 40K cash month. And the last, I think it's 2 or 3 years, I've been making between 25 to 40K cash months from one-on-one. That is quite consistent. So like I'm coming from a place of, and again, I've helped 30 clients. I have a very small one-on-one roster. Most of my clients are new. I've helped 30 clients make 10K months. 16 clients make 6 figures. Many scale to 250K, 500, 700K. 3 clients scale to $1 million. So this is coming from, like, I really genuinely understand business. These are clients in different, literally in different industries using different strategies. I understand business. I understand sales very well. I have a 92 to 93% sales call closing rate, right? And what I have just seen to be true is you really can't afford not to focus on this. This is actually where the money in your business is. We push away more money when we are so focused on what can I get than we realize. When we stop focusing on what's in it for me and we make it, again, and not from a place of like, of course it's also what's in it for us. Of course we are a business. Of course making money matters. I care a lot about money. And I also don't, right? Like I would probably coach my clients for free, except for I care a lot about money, and then they wouldn't show up for their, and get the same results, because I do think there's something that happens when you invest at a high level in terms of the way you show up and the results you get. I've seen that myself with my own coach. I see that with my clients. But the point being here is like it's about so much more than the money for me, and I think it is for most of us. But when we're in that scarcity, when we're in that place, when you can really start to see how can I make this about a give and take or about what's in it for them as much as it's what's in it for me, right? It doesn't have to be like there's nothing in it for me. But when you can make it about that, everything changes. And just think about how that changes a sales conversation. That means you could drop down and listen and actually understand. Remember, the type of relationship we're talking about is, can you actually understand the person in front of you? Can you actually understand your audience? Not can you build a connection because you've shown up 400 times on social media. You can show up 400 times on social media and never make a cent in your business, right? It's, can you show up in a way where you make people feel seen, heard, and understood? I think the reason I have great client results, the reason I have great sales results is my focus is on how can I listen, hear, understand you? How can I actually get clear on what's right for you more than anything else? That also tells me everything I need to know. Then I know the right questions to ask, right? I don't need a fucking script, because then if I'm listening, right, and I understand what the person in front of me needs and wants, right, I know what to speak to. I know what to address. I know if I should lean into an objection or not, right? I know if I should follow up, how to follow up, what to say in the follow-up, instead of just having a canned response. That again, that changes everything in your business. And I will say, anytime I've been in business, I've been coaching for 10 and a half years. I've been in business for 8 and a half. Anytime I have focused, I've been in a place of scarcity, or I've been like, let me follow the sales thing that someone taught me. And of course there's strategy to sales. None of this is saying there isn't strategy to that. But when I've sort of been like, well, no, really, this is the place where like I should have a whole hard boundary and I should really lean into this objection and I should do X, Y, and Z so that I'm more salesy. Sometimes that's right, but anytime I've not listened to myself based on what the person in front of me is telling me or non-verbally telling me, it has always bitten me in the ass, right? Maybe it means I've gotten a client, but they've been not the right fit. Or, maybe it means that I feel icky afterwards, or maybe it means I've left the other person feeling icky and I need to clean that up. And gratefully for me, this is something I have a very deep internal compass on, so there's less than one time on a hand that I could count that's happened in the last 8.5 years, but I can really see see the difference that makes, and I see it for my clients as well, right? I see how when we don't listen to that, when we don't pay attention to understanding what someone in front of us is actually asking for or needs, it just makes everything more challenging, and that's usually when we have the biggest problems with sales or with our clients themselves. I just want to see here. Kate says, yes, yes, yes. And I find it's different for each person as you're really listening to them. Plus, absolutely love your hair today. Oh, thank you so much. I have a hair question for you all, but I want to respond to Kate's thing first. But I'm getting my roots, my shadow root done. And Kate, I know you're maybe talking about the blow dry, but I'm wondering if I should go a little bit more strawberry, like honey, like slightly red blonde. So feel free to chime in, y'all. But Kate, thank you. That means the world to me. I got the Dyson Airwrap, so that's my trick there. But to what Kate is saying here, it's exactly this. It is different for each person if you're really listening. And so that can sound scary to us. That can sound confusing when we're thinking about having sales conversations, right? We want scripts. And again, I have a sales call framework, right? I have a strategy. I think there's a method to the madness, but it's an art and a strategy. And I think when we feel insecure, when we're feeling desperate, we want to cling on to, there's one way to do something. And if I follow this, right, I'm going to get results, right? We see that in strategy all the time. When we're not getting the results we want, we just want to cling on to someone, just tell me what to do. And if I just do these 3 things, then I'm going to make $1 million. Or if I just say these 4 things, and like, no one will ever have an objection. Everybody will say yes to me. I'll never get rejected, right? And so that's super normal, but that tends to be our own fear and our own insecurity. And what Kate is saying, hey, Alyssa, what Kate is saying is so true. Each person is different, which is why if we focus on relationships, and we focus on relationships in terms of give and take and understanding the person in front of us, you don't need to cling on to or look for something that doesn't exist, because the person in front of you will always give you the answer. And so, yes, you have to trust yourself to listen to that, but it actually gets much easier. I'm an ex-actress. I can memorize some lines. Let me tell you, doing improv and listening to the person in front of you and responding to them is 10,000 times easier than memorizing a script for a movie. Right, and figuring out how to play that appropriately, like 1,000 times easier. Think about your conversations with your best friend, your husband. If you knew in advance what you were going to say and had like rehearsed it, think of how much harder that is than if you're paying attention to your spouse and really understanding them as a human, or your best friend, and responding based on what actually feels intuitively like true or right in that moment. Isn't that so much easier? And so it's the same thing here, but that will also always give you the answer, right? That will help you to know, where do you lean into an objection? What is this person actually struggling with? You know, what's the thing under the thing for an objection? That's a whole nother conversation, but we've talked about that here before. Most sales objections, right, aren't the surface level thing someone says. It's often the thing under the thing, but it's hard to even know what that could be, or if we should go there, or if someone's sort of like I'm just not available for that right now. If we're not paying attention, right, if we're just trying to go based off of, this is the way I get a sale, this is what's in it for me, versus what does this person actually need, right? Can I understand this person? What's actually in it for them? Same thing with like knowing what to say in a follow-up. If you've paid attention to the person in front of you, that's going to vary for 3 different people, but you'll always have the right answer based on that if that's what you're paying attention to. And the same for your content. And if you're seeing, trying to kind of just go back to the content and messaging, if you're seeing your content, just thinking of how I'm going to phrase this. I like to think that marketing always works, right? It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So if your content, if your messaging isn't giving you the results you want, or it's bringing in people who aren't the right fit, or it's not landing in a way that's getting you the results that also make sense, right? Like, there are also statistical norms. No matter how amazing your content is, you're not going to have 100% conversion rate. Everybody's not going to want to hire you. Certain audiences are going to get people engaging visibly. Certain audiences aren't, right? Not everybody is going to have an audience that slides into your DM. So I want to like be mindful, because we could start opening up a rabbit hole of things here. But in terms of what you would expect it to do, if you think about the relationships you have with your audience and understanding them, you'll always know the right answer in terms of what to adjust, especially if you're paying attention to that data, right? The data can give you some information, but don't forget that's also data and information. And then that's how you always know, what is the topic to pick? What's the masterclass to host? What's the live stream topic, right? What are the things I'm going to say on my post? It will always give you the answer. And it just makes business so much simpler. And so this is the simplest concept. Simple doesn't always mean easy, but this is something everybody knows how to do, because we do it all day, every day. And the more you can start to think about it through this lens, the more I think it can simplify your strategies and how you're showing up in business, how you're serving clients, how you're delivering an offer, when you're deciding to hold a boundary, to not hold a boundary, to over deliver, to not over deliver, what to say in your messaging, right? This is the difference maker. When you're looking at someone, you're like, I don't understand how that bitch gets those results. I am doing the same exact things as her. Part of it is probably, and I'm just saying that I shouldn't say that bitch. I just know sometimes my clients, like, what will come up for them. Look, there's multiple reasons, right? Maybe they're really unapologetic. Maybe they're really magnetic. Maybe they've really done the work to own their work. I think that's an element of it. But probably part of it is they just know their people and understand them just a little bit more. And they've built stronger, deeper relationships. Again, when I said I booked 8 high ticket clients last month, for future spots, obviously not all for 1 month because I'm fully booked, but yes, like my marketing is good. Yes, that's great. But I was on vacation. I wasn't launching. Like, I think that can just seem like, oh, I have some magic secret. The truth is, again, it's just because I've got 8.5 years of relationship building. I've just built some really strong relationships. And because of that, and because I understand my people, that can also affect my content. That also means it's easier for me to post something, know what people need to hear to get a consultation or to have someone in my DMs or whatever those things are that lead to a sale as well. So it is really, really, really that part. Okay, I wanted to close. Let me know if you have questions. I'm going to see that, and then I wanted to close with just a couple of things to think about when navigating those sales conversations and follow-ups and how that supports getting fully booked, because that was one of the nuggets. It's probably a little bit of a repeat of what I just shared, but they're just a couple just to like land the plane on that. Kate says, "Ooh, I always love it. Hair color change." Okay, I feel like you've got good hair. I feel like you get me, Kate. I'm sure it'll be subtle because I did this when I got my highlights done last. We did this and it already kind of faded really quickly. So I'm sure it'll be kind of subtle, but because Kate, you're a blonde. I'm sure my blondes will relate to this, and I promise I'll come back to our topic at hand. It's like, I don't know, at least me, I am so obsessed with like the right shade at any given time, where it's like this cool or this warm or this ash or this dirty blonde or not. This is where I funnel my recovering perfectionism and my obsession. I funnel it to things like this. So I appreciate the input. I'm sure nobody else will even notice the difference. Okay, so last thing here. Sorry, I'm laughing at my hair truth here. Okay, so just going back to, I think we kind of just covered this here, but I just want to make sure I do land the plane on this in terms of understanding people, building relationships, that idea of give and take. I think one of the most underrated strategies for business owners, whether you're a coach or not, I think definitely for us as coaches and as therapists, but for your sales conversations and honestly for your marketing, for your content, and you all know this, but it's 2 things here. It's remembering that your ability to listen and to actually listen and to make someone feel seen, heard, and understood, which means sometimes hearing beyond the words, right? That's a coaching skill set, but even not that, just like literally just being able to listen. I mean, there's so many studies that show people will pay money and get more of like a dopamine spike from getting to talk and verbally process than sex and drugs and money, right? We have such a deep craving to be seen, heard, and understood as humans. And I think we just forget that. So if we think about the relationship and understanding someone, this is just the easiest sales strategy ever, is practicing listening more. There's a great Hamilton song in Hamilton, and one of the things, it's Burr speaking to Hamilton and giving him advice, and one of the things he says is talk less, listen more. I was just listening to it this morning. I have Hamilton on repeat post-election. It is giving me life. He says talk less, listen more. And we have to think, of course, like this is also like give and take, but we're doing give and take in a way that really is not overly giving, but it is about the person in front of us more than it is about us, right? If it's a friendship, we want more of that give and take in a conversation. If we're having a sales conversation, talk less, listen more. Borrow from Alexander Burr Alexander Burr. Let me mash those names together. Borrow from Burr's advice to Hamilton. The other thing to remember is, as humans, we buy based for emotional reasons. We buy based and we make investments based on emotional reasons, and then we fill that in with logic. So what that means is how you leave someone feeling matters as much as the actual things you say, which is why simply having a script, I'm not hating on scripts, right? They can be great to learn from, and I think having a framework is important, and knowing, a sales strategy and all of that. But I think what happens is we lose the forest for the trees, and we forget the simple facts and truth are the money in your business. If you want to make more money, it comes back to relationships, right? And this is one of the parts of that. People buy for emotional reasons, they fill that in with logic. And so when we get so wrapped up in what's the right thing to say, or we're like, why is I have the perfect message and one liner in my bio, why is that not bringing me clients? Sometimes it's because we are focused so much on the technical part, which means we're up in our head, right? We're thinking about our stuff, we're thinking about us, right? We're not thinking about how am I leaving someone feeling. And so if we're thinking about that, that is also going to change how we respond to things, right? It's how someone feels. Usually it's, do they feel seen, heard, and understood? And do they feel like you are confident? Do they feel like you are someone they trust to help them solve their problem? Do they feel like you got them, that you are a safer place to put their money, right? It's not just like, did we make them like all hyped up and feel like razzle dazzled? I mean, that could be a sales strategy, and I would say maybe that could almost be a problematic sales strategy. It's more, and the thing I'm thinking about is more, do I make them feel seen, heard, and understood? Do I make them feel like I am confident, right? I need to be more confident in what I'm offering than the person I'm selling to. I need to be able to demonstrate to someone with integrity, if it's true, that I got them, especially if they're making a big investment. It's important for me to leave someone feeling with this idea of, I understand what their problem is, not just from like an empathetic place, like I actually understand it and I know how to solve it, right? Like I know how to help them get a result. Because if I can leave someone feeling that way, which isn't so much about a script, right? It's about listening. It's about communication. It's about building a relationship. It's also about, our own relationship with our own self and our work. That is really the difference maker in a sales conversation. And then last thing, I've shared this before. I shared this in my 6-week sales course. I'm sure I've shared this on a ton of lives over the years, but I'm sure everybody has not heard that. I think one of the things I like to remember that helps me with this all the time is I am super confident in my work and in my ability, and I know I'm a damn good coach and I understand business, but I know one of the best ways I can support someone is making sure that they're the right fit, and also by not assuming I know the answers or have the answers for them. The second I think I know what's right for someone else, right, we are all in trouble. The second I try to be the guru on the pedestal, I am taking someone's power away. That never helps anyone get results. The second I assume I know everything, please someone come and kick me off my high horse. Like, I hope that never happens, because that's really problematic as a coach. But it also, just as a business owner, what that means is that I am not listening anymore, right? I am deciding things for people. That is a problem. And so I really like to come into a sales conversation, and this is relationship building. Like, I really like to come into a coaching call really assuming I don't know shit. And also having all the confidence in the world that I can listen and hear and figure some shit out with someone, right? Like, I have a lot of expertise, I know my shit, but that I don't know shit about what's right for the person in front of me, or what's true for them, or what's coming up for them, or what they most need in this moment. And I think that's one of the reasons my clients get big results. I think that's one of the reasons I have a great sales call conversion rate, because I let someone tell me, right, we figured that out together. I've been surprised so many times, right? And I've been doing this a long time. I've had thousands and thousands and thousands of calls. I don't know how many sales calls at this point. I cannot tell you how many times, based on what like someone has told me in a pre-session form, I think we're going to go one way and this call goes another way. Or a sales conversation, I think it's going to be, one thing, and it is completely different than what I think or what I think they need. But if we can't get on a sales conversation, since that's what we're talking about, to what someone actually needs, if we can't get to what someone's problem actually is and we can't get to like how we're going to be able to co-create a solution, I'm not leaving them feeling like I got them. I'm not leaving them feeling seen, heard, and understood. I'm not leaving them feeling like I can support them getting a result. If anything, I'm leaving them feeling like I might be a quick fix solution, or like a savior, or like a know-it-all, which, look, that will create sales. But when we're talking about long-term results in business and the type of relationships that lead to great clients, great fit sales, people who stick around, people who want to renew and work with you for years and years, it doesn't lead to that, right? You either leave someone feeling like shit and they don't want to hire you, or you create a power dynamic that really is not, in my opinion, my humble opinion and experience, is really not a helpful or healthy dynamic for any of us who are service providers. Okay, let me see. Okay, no other questions, thoughts there. I know that was a mouthful, maybe a little bit more than anybody needs in terms of the philosophy there, but I just again, I feel like this is one of the most simple concepts, but so nuanced and something that we just can't hear enough of and can't be reminded enough of, especially I feel like when the online space is screaming so many other things at us. And I'll just like to put a bow on it, really focusing on, yes, relationships, but those give and take relationships, not just relationships about what you can get or how you can make a sale and ignoring everything else, like really focusing on the give and take and thinking about relationships from that lens and thinking about relationships in terms of how can you understand your audience and your people, that concept. And if you focus on that, I don't like to make promises because that feels weird in business, but really truly, I promise you that will make you more money than anything else. You can do a lot of things technically and strategically wrong, and if you're doing this, and I know because I have clients who have scaled to 1 million who are brilliant at what they do, but if you were to look at the size of their audience, if you were to look at their content, if you were to look at their messaging, and I'm excellent at helping people with that, that's just not what they focused on, but if you were to look at that, you would never think, oh, that leads to $1 million business, but they are excellent at relationship and the kind of relationship we're talking about in terms of understanding people, building relationships with that give and take, knowing how to leave people feeling confident in them and their ability to support them and to get them in the container. Right? That can build you $1 million business, even if your strategy is so-so, even if your messaging is so-so, even if your marketing is so-so. And this is coming from someone who is obsessed with messaging and marketing and not having it be so-so. And so I really just want you to hear that, like, this is the thing of all things. And if you focus on nothing else, it'll also make all of those other things easier and more effective for you and get you bigger results. Like, this is the way you scale sustainably. I hope that's valuable for you. I'm gonna hop off because I got a client call in a minute, but if anyone's hearing this and you're curious about how I work with clients and you want someone who cares about prioritizing you and your relationship and your results and understanding you and understanding what's right for you and helping you find the answers that are going to help you make more money, scale your business, get the kind of results my clients get, whether that's your first 10K month, your first 6-figure year, your first multi-6-figure, 7-figure year. You want someone who really cares about that relationship that is the difference maker in coaching and therapy and any of those, and to the degree where, look, I'm going to hold my boundaries always, but I think all of my clients would say that I'm pretty much over deliver for everyone, and I'm happy to. If that's the kind of support you're looking for, I will drop a link for a free coaching consultation. As I've mentioned, fit is incredibly important to me because if we're not the right fit, doesn't matter how great you are, how great I am, we're just not going to be able to do great work together. I know when we're a great fit, then that's when we can just have the relationship soar and the results soar. So I will drop a link for that. I'm meeting with potential clients. I've got some spots opening up at the end of the year and into the new year. I'm still not exactly sure if we have anything in December. I have a client who's on maternity leave, so I'm finding out if she's coming back or not. But we could potentially have a spot in December, but definitely in the new year. I have some spots, so take me up on that call if you're curious about working together. And then I will be back next week with another topic. I guess it's right before Black Friday, so I think we have a topic that is themed around that. All right, y'all. Love you. If you have questions on the replay as well, let me know. Thank you so much for being here. I have a relationship with all of you as well, and it means the world to me that you come here and that you hang out with me and that you have these conversations with me. Truly, 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 it means so much to me. So let me also honor that relationship and say thank you. I appreciate y'all. All right, bye.